The morning city hummed like an orchestra of chaos, honking cars, hurried footsteps, and street vendors shouting over one another. On the corner of Maple and Fifth sat an old man with a guitar that had seen better days. Its strings were frayed, the wood cracked, and yet his hands moved over it with the kind of tenderness only love could teach. People passed by without looking. Some dropped coins out of guilt. Most didn't even slow down. His name was Walter. Once, long ago, he'd played in smoky bars and bright stages, but those days were gone, taken by time, circumstance, and loss. Now the street was his audience, the open sky his only roof. Across the street, a sleek black car pulled up beside the curb. From it stepped a man in an immaculate suit, gold watch flashing under the morning sun. His name was Charles Whitman, a successful real estate developer known for his wealth and arrogance. Charles paused when he heard the faint melody floating through the air, old, raw, hauntingly beautiful. He looked around, confused, until his eyes landed on the frail figure sitting by the lamppost. He chuckled to himself. So that's where the noise is coming from. Walter kept playing, unaware of the eyes watching him. The song was soft and nostalgic, the kind that carried both pain and peace. Charles crossed the street, his polished shoes clacking against the pavement. He stood in front of Walter and smirked. "You call that music?" Walter looked up, his blue eyes calm. "It's what my heart remembers." "Your heart, huh?" Charles scoffed. "Maybe your heart's as broken as that guitar." A few passers-by glanced over, sensing tension. Walter said nothing. He simply lowered his gaze and continued to play. The notes trembled like his fingers, but they carried something more powerful than perfection. Charles shook his head. "You know, it's funny," he said. "You're sitting here wasting time, while people like me make something of ourselves." Walter smiled faintly. "Sometimes, son, it's not about making something. It's about remembering something." That response didn't sit well. Charles laughed mockingly and tossed a crumpled bill into the old man's guitar case. "Here, buy yourself a new dream." Walter paused his playing and looked at the bill. It wasn't much, but the insult weighed heavier than the money. Still, he nodded politely. "Thank you, sir. May your dreams bring you peace." Charles rolled his eyes and walked off. The crowd dispersed. Walter continued to play. Hours passed. The sun climbed higher and shadows shifted across the street. Walter's song changed. It grew sadder, deeper. Later that afternoon, a small crowd began to form. A couple of teenagers had stopped to film him, moved by the rawness in his music. A few others followed, drawn by curiosity. The melody had a story hidden inside it, a story that seemed to reach straight into the soul. And then something unexpected happened. Charles returned. He'd just left a nearby cafe, laughing with business partners when he heard the song again. But this time, something about it stopped him in his tracks. The lyrics began to rise above the noise of the city, old, trembling words, filled with heartache. "I once had a son who played in the rain with dreams in his eyes untouched by pain, but the rain kept falling and washed him away. Now I sing for his memory day after day." The crowd went silent. Charles froze. His smile vanished. The old man's voice cracked on every word, not from weakness, but from truth. Charles felt something twist inside his chest. The lyrics weren't just words. They were a confession. He stepped closer, his throat tightening. What did you say?" he asked softly. Walter looked up, startled. "It's just a song," he said, strumming another chord. But Charles shook his head. "No, that line. About your son." Walter's eyes clouded. "He was my boy, bright, full of laughter. He wanted to be a musician, too." The city noise faded. Only the guitar remained. "What happened to him?" Charles whispered. Walter stared at the ground. "He left one night. Said he wanted to make me proud. Never came back." The silence between them was deafening. Charles took a shaky breath. "What was his name?" Walter hesitated. "Daniel." Charles's world stopped. The name hit him like thunder. His eyes widened, his voice trembled. "Daniel?" Whitman? The old man looked up, confused. Yes. How do you know my son's name? Charles's lips quivered. Because he was my father. The crowd gasped. Cameras stopped recording. The air thickened with disbelief. Walter's hand dropped from the guitar. What did you say? Charles stepped closer, tears welling in his eyes. My father left when I was just a baby. My mother said he loved music more than her, that he disappeared and never looked back. Walter's breath caught. Your mother's name? Emily? Charles nodded, trembling. The old man's guitar slid from his lap, clattering onto the pavement. He rose slowly, his eyes filling with tears that had been waiting decades to fall. I never stopped looking for you, he said in a voice that broke the world. I played that song hoping you'd hear me one day. Charles stood frozen, emotions colliding like waves. I thought you abandoned us. Walter shook his head. I lost everything trying to find you. The world moved on. I didn't. For a long, aching moment, they simply stared at each other. Two broken men, strangers bound by blood and time. Then Charles fell to his knees. Dad. Walter reached out, his frail hands trembling as they touched Charles's face. You've grown into the man I prayed you'd become. The city disappeared. There was only father and son, reunited by a song born of regret. The crowd watched silently, tears glistening on unfamiliar faces. Charles helped his father to his feet. Come home with me, he said softly. You don't belong here anymore. Walter hesitated. Are you sure? I'm sure, Charles said. You've already given me more than money ever could. Together they walked toward the waiting car. The old guitar hung from Walter's back, no longer a symbol of loss, but of connection. That night at a grand charity gala, Charles took the stage. Cameras flashed, lights sparkled, but all he could see was his father sitting in the front row. I used to think success was measured by wealth, Charles said into the microphone. But today I learned it's measured by love. This next song is for the man who taught me that. Walter smiled as his son began to play. The same song, reborn through younger hands. The room was silent, save for the sound of healing. And as the final note faded, Walter whispered to himself, now the music can rest. If this story touched your heart, tell us in the comments, what would you do if life gave you a second chance to forgive? Share this story with someone who needs to believe in redemption. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us here at Rewind Reality, where every story reminds us that love is louder than pain.